It's like I don't care about nothing, man. Yeah. Oh,
What's going on, guys? This video is going to be about angle, side, angle. So you're going to notice in this one, we're actually going to use both of the things that we can assume. So we've been writing it on every page, but we haven't used it yet in any examples I've done. So you're actually going to see an example where both are going to be used. All right, so the saga continues. We are on page 1 again. Now, we have angle, side, angle. So you would have an angle being congruent, a side being congruent, and another angle. So with this one, just keep in mind that the side is going to be in between the angles. So this one is the opposite of what we had for side, angle, side. The side is in between the angles whenever you have ASA. So since I didn't go over in the last video, I wanted to do it right now. Down here it says reason angles are congruent. So there are a few ways. One is they can tell you it, and sometimes it's given. One way is vertical angles. That's something that if you see it, you're allowed to assume it. Alternate interior, alternate exterior corresponding. These is if it says parallel lines. So if it says parallel, these are the types of angle relationships you can deal with. And then if it has the word angle bisector in the given, then definition of angle bisector has to be one of your answers. So I'm highlighting it, and it was already underlined because I think that's very important. That can turn into basically a gimme question if you remember it. So on the top of the page, you'll notice, just like every other page, it's asking what are we allowed to assume? Well, we're allowed to assume vertical angles and reflexive sides. So now I'm going to actually talk about angle, side, angle. So you'll notice that an angle is congruent, a side is congruent, and another angle. So for this one up here, so they want us to talk about an angle first. So we're going to say if angle BAC, so that means we're talking about angle A, that one's going to be congruent to angle EDF. So A and D, both of those angles are congruent to each other. Now the side we were told is congruent is AB is congruent to DE. So those two sides are supposed to be congruent to each other. I knew that because they both had one dash. And then the last one, the last angle, angle ABC, so angle B is congruent to angle DEF, so angle E. So now we can say that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF by angle, side, angle. Asa. Okay, so we're looking at the problem on page 8. It says that you are given that TY is congruent to XY. So that's the first thing given to us. So that's what I'm going to fill in right here. TY is congruent to XY. So these two lines are congruent because it's given. So I'm going to put a marking through it. So TY is here. XY is here. Now there was another thing given to me. It said that angle VTY is congruent to angle WXY. So this angle and this angle are supposed to be congruent because that was given to us. Now, number 3 is one that we are allowed to assume. So I noticed that we have two lines crossing that make an X. So this angle and this angle have to be congruent because they are vertical angles. So now I just have to figure out what angles these are that I marked. So angle T, Y, V, so TYV, so this angle here, has to be congruent to angle X, Y, W. So X, Y, W, so this angle right here. And again, that was because of vertical angles. So now we were able to do what we were trying to prove. So if triangle TBY is congruent to XWY, and the reason is because we have an angle, side, angle. Angle, side, angle. And again, you don't have to write it fully out. You can just put ASA. So I'm going to do another example on page 9. Reason I want to do another example is because you have not yet seen one that has reflexive sides. So I wanted to make sure that we at least see a problem that does do this. So you'll notice that most of the statements are already in there. The only thing that we're missing is the reasons, except for number 4. So the first reason every time, I don't even have to read this yet, is going to be given. So again, if you don't want me to have to ring my shame bell at you, you're going to want to make sure that you know the first reason in every proof is given. So what they told us is that SQ bisects angle RQT and angle RST. So this angle and this angle got bisected. So if you need a refresher, bisect means cut in half. So that means that that's where we have this right here. So we had angle bisector. So this was something that actually was going to get that you highlighted on the very front page. This is something I talked about in this video. If they ever say an angle bisector, definition of angle bisector has to be used. So when we say angle RQS, so this side here is going to be congruent to TQS, this side here. The reason is because of definition of angle bisector. And then on the other side, we were told RSQ, this side, is congruent to TSQ, this side. So the reason that those ones are congruent is, again, because of definition of angle bisectors. So because it bisected two angles, that had to be used twice. So now number 4 is what we're allowed to assume. Now we're allowed to assume vertical angles and reflexive sides. We don't have vertical angles, but we do have a reflexive side. So I am fine with you just writing reflexive in this line. Now, if you said reflexive side, reflexive property, you would be correct as well. So this side is shared by both triangles. So they both have the side QS. So whenever you say reflexive, you're saying the same things equal to each other. So QS is congruent to QS. And the reason, so then the last thing, what we're trying to prove, we're trying to prove that triangle QRS is congruent to triangle QTS. The reason is because we have an angle, side, angle. So that's the end of this video. Now, hopefully you kind of recognize whenever you're going to see the vertical angles and the reflexive sides. So now you actually got an example with that. Also remember that if you're doing angle side angle, that the side is going to be in between the two angles. And so all the ones on the rest on page 9 and 10 are extra practice for you. So I would suggest doing that to prepare for the test. But besides that, I hope you enjoyed.